to. So whether it's in our professional life, whether we're in ministry, whether we are in our home life, our personal life, or our community service, I see you coming in. We have Nashville in the house, and Huntsville, Alabama, and DC. That's what I love about Leadership Forward and being on the Zoom, because we are able to connect with people all over the country. And so connection is simply important to us. So again, welcome to Leadership Forward. This is, I believe, our last Leadership Forward for the year. So we started out for this season in September, October, and November. And just want you to know that if you want to catch up on any of our learnings, you could go to our SBC 21 page on our website. They will drop it in the chat, and just click on resources, and you can catch up on a number of amazing topics that can help you and your leadership in your church to grow forward. So today, we're going to be talking about shifting, okay? So from here on out, you will be known as a shifter, all right? So just like we said in our e-blast and our promotions to you, we dare you to shift. What does that mean, Toska? Well, I have two amazing individuals, two amazing leaders in our church, two amazing trailblazers who will let us know what it means to shift. But friends, let me tell you, this book right here, last spring, Dare to Shift, hit the market. And it hit the market by storm. And it's a book that they tell me, and the research says that Amazon had it on the #1 bestseller list for the first 2 weeks of this book. But I went to, when it came out in April, I purchased this book, and I took a little brief sabbatical in vacation, and I took this book with me. And after I got to probably the 4th chapter, I was texting both Dr. Bowie and Dr. Handy, letting them know that I am going to forever be in the mindset of shifting. And what I learned from the book is that being able to shift, no matter where you are and what situation you've been, is a mental thing. It is a mindset change first. You have to know that you need to shift. So friends, today we're going to have a conversation about adaptive leadership. We're going to learn what it is, how vital it is, and how nimble we must be, and how flexible we must be to do new things as it relates to ministry, new things as it relates to our own personal growth and development. There's some new things that I have had to do even in parenting young adult kids, young adult children. So, what I've learned from Shift is that we're going to have to challenge ourselves for new ways of thinking. So today, Dr. Bowie, who is the National Executive Director of SBC 21, and who leads us in so many amazing visionary ideas, including our upcoming Shift Happens conference, that you'll learn more about that later on in the broadcast. But Dr. Bowie is going to share with us, as well as Dr. Handy, Dr. Stephen Handy, who I call a #1 collaborator. What I know about Dr. Handy is that he knows how to put the right people in the room to collaborate to get effective results, whether it's CEOs, whether it's nonprofit leaders, whether it's pastors. He knows how to stack a room to get results. So we're going to hear from Dr. Stephen Handy, who will share some amazing things with us as well. He's also the senior pastor at McKendree United Methodist Church in Nashville, Tennessee. And so today, what's going to happen simply is, I always want you to drop your questions in the chat, because we want to get to your questions. But simply, they're going to break down the acronym SHIFT. Okay, we're going to talk about what that means. So as you chew on whatever you're chewing on, I want you to chew on this knowledge, okay? Because you see, S has a word, has an acronym for it. H has something, I has something, F has something, and T has something. And so I want you to get your note, get your pen, your paper. The only thing that I have for lunch right now is a cup of coffee, because that's why I'm on 10, because this is like my 3rd cup, okay? So anyway, I'm happy that you're here. And I want to bring up Dr. Bowie. Come on in, Dr. Bowie, come on in.
Well, good afternoon. How's everybody doing?
You doing good?
I am well here in Houston, Texas, enjoying life. Just got through having lunch with my grandson, Carter Alexander. So I'm glad to be with all the shifters on the call today.
Well, Dr. Bowie, I'm gonna set this up with one question, and then I'm gonna let you run with it
All
because,
right.
as I said, I was sitting on vacation and I was reading this book, and it put me in the mindset because 2 years ago we did the Shift Happens conference,
Right.
and I know that this has been in your spirit since the pandemic and how we came out of the pandemic and how we continue to transition. And now God gave you some uncommon things to share with the people.
Yeah.
But I just want to let you know that the book has allowed me to navigate into a new reality in so many different ways. Wow. And so what was the expectation when you wrote this book? What did you want to happen for people who would read this book? Because I know what it did for me.
Well, that's a good question. First, I want to thank my co-creator, my co-author, Dr. Stephen Handy, who you said he is truly a kingdom collaborator. So I wanted to make sure I had the right person with me to kind of flesh out these ideas. And what I shared with Dr. Handy, we both agreed that when this in March 2020, the global pandemic literally changed the world. And we had to go from business as usual, the way we shop, the way we work, even the way we worship, everything changed. And as I began to discern where God was leading us, it was amazing. God took me to John 21 after Jesus resurrected, and God showed me real clear that we've been in a disruption over 3 years. And guess what? The disciples were with Jesus for 3 years. And they were part of a disruption that changed the world. After the death and the resurrection of Jesus, everything changed. So it showed me this wasn't our first rodeo. The first thing that changed the world was not COVID-19. It was the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. So that's been stuck with me. Because you said it best. It's been on me for 3 years. And I shared it with my brother, Dr. Handy. And we start mulling over this, and he just took this and ran with it. So that's why we're here today. We're talking about dare to shift. We believe that right now, everything needs to shift. How we lead, how we learn, how we love. I mean, everything has to change. So thank you, Toska, for saying how this book is changing your life. So we want to dare everybody to take the shift, do new things.
Right. And I'm going to ask Dr. Handy one question, and then I'll gracefully bow out so that you guys can feed us for lunch. And Dr. Handy, one of the things that I really enjoyed about the book is the approach that you took from a holistic leadership perspective and not just from a clergy person in the pulpit. And you speak my language when you begin to talk about entrepreneurship and rethinking entrepreneurship and what that means and questions that we need for stimulation. Why did you go that route in terms of looking at entrepreneurship as a way to lead from a person that's primarily a pastor in the pulpit?
Yeah, thank you, Toska. Good to see you, Dr. Bowie.
Good seeing you too, my friend.
One of the things I've discovered about Jesus that we don't talk about, and the disciples were all second career, which means they all had an entrepreneurial skill that Jesus didn't say leave behind. He says bring with you. And Jesus was a carpenter, which means that he was an entrepreneur. And so for us to detach our gifts and we move into another, what I would call sphere of influence, is to simply say what God had attached to us wasn't good enough. And so I always tell people the way forward for pastors, nonprofit leaders, leaders in every sector of our society is everybody has an entrepreneurial spirit. Sometimes we suppress that spirit in the name of the church.
Wow.
And so what we get to do is go, no, not on my watch. This is who I am. I am made in the image of God. And that spirit moves us beyond. So the entrepreneurship of Jesus was a movement to call disciples to be what I would call innovators and entrepreneurs.
Okay, wow. Well, I jumped to chapter 4 in the book. So then I need you all to make sure that you have the book and read the book. I'm gonna bow out because we have about 30 minutes that I want you all to share and go through your presentation. But I want to come back here in about 30 minutes.
30 minutes, all right. I know
it's going to be a lot of questions that people want to ask in the chat. So I'll gracefully and you guys take it away.
All right. Thank you, Toska.
So Mike, we spent a great deal of time writing, editing this book.
Yeah.
And towards the end, we had some developmental ideas that kind of emerged in our time together, even on the back end. And if we were to rewrite this book, we would
Point 2.0
perspectives, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This is
So part of this SHIFT acronym, we talk about Jesus being seen among the disciples and they couldn't see him. This idea of seeing disruptions as an opportunity.
Yeah.
Could you help us frame and kind of put that in a practical sense so our ears can hear?
Yeah, thank you. I call Stephen aka Handyman. So thank you, Stephen. Thank you, man. You know, one of the first essays that we look at in this book, that if we could write another volume, this would be Dare to Shift 2.0. And we believe that when the disciples encounter this traumatic moment of seeing the death and resurrection of Jesus, we believe it altered their perspective. And what they didn't realize, that this disruption they saw, it was an opportunity. And for those who are writing, disruptions, they are problems that really will halter an event that would stop the forward progress of any movement. So in life, everybody experiences disruption. Think about it, 3 years, we've been disrupted, COVID-19 disruption. If you think about it, for those who are United Methodist, this whole disaffiliation has been a disruption. If you think about your personal life, losing the death of a loved one, losing a job, losing anything that is dear to you, it hinders the process of moving forward. And I believe, Dr. Handy, so often we see those disruptions as an obstacle. But with Jesus and the disciples, Jesus said, hey, I know you don't understand where you are, but look at the disruption not as an obstacle, but as an opportunity. And if we can be honest with ourselves, all of us, we've experienced disruptions in life. And this book is challenging us. How do we navigate through unexpected disruptions so that we can be, as Toska said, nimble and adaptive for the new thing that God is doing? So what we want to share with y'all, we can't tell y'all everything about the book because you have to get the book. But we know that in this new season, in this iteration of ministry, we have to see every disruption that God allows as not as an obstacle, but it's an opportunity. I think that's what it's all about. And guess what, Dr. Handy?
Yes,
when
sir.
these disruptions come, we got two choices. We can react and complain, or we can respond and praise. And what I've chosen to do, my brother, in this book, I had a disruption. Some of you all know, I think it's on page 16 of the book, I had a baseball-sized tumor to the right side of my brain. And you talking about a disruption, I didn't know what was going to happen in my life. But God showed me, you all, that out of this disruption, God was doing a brand new possibility. So instead of grumbling and complaining, I began to respond and give God praise, because I want to tell you right here, remember this, every disruption in our lives is just an incubator about to give birth to a brand new possibility.
That's good. That's good. So Mike, when you think about, Dr. Bowie, when you think about,
you can call me Mike. I call you. We go back and forth.
Yeah. Let's
go back. Yeah.
So when you think about this idea of disruption, as a spiritual practice, as opposed to something that's coming to defeat us, it uses these disruptions to shift us, right? This 180 shift.
Yeah.
If we are willing to change our mindset, but we have a tendency to overly focus on skill set.
Wow.
So I think you're helping us understand disruptions are a way of life.
Yes.
And how do we see them as a spiritual practice to what I would call pivot?
Pivot. Yeah.
Play basketball, you get that 1 foot down, you can move that up and around.
Yeah.
So I think the opportunity aspect of this, as opposed to the obstacle, only creates for us a way forward, but it's our way forward, not your way forward, not my way forward, but it's a collective way forward.
Right.
Good.
Right.
Thank you. So I know Tasha's about to get on us around time. So let me move this on.
But this is good. Thank you, man.
So the idea now of this H is harvesting a renewed mindset for greater innovation.
Yeah.
So now the disruption has happened.
Yeah.
What is the harvest?
The harvest is that brand new possibility. The harvest, I would call, is that blank canvas where we can paint it however the Spirit lead us to experience this new reality. So this harvest and a renewed mindset, I believe we can only do that by doing something new or something different. Think about the disciples in verses 3 and 4 of John 21. They fished all night, you all, and they caught nothing. Think about it, they were professional fishermen. They knew how to fish, but that night the text said they caught nothing. So God disrupted their plans. And I believe right now, what we have to understand, you all, that in this new season of ministry, this new season of learning, this new season of life, how do we cultivate a new harvest to experience new innovative things? And when I think about this, you all, Jesus shows up. The disciples didn't know who Jesus was, which let me know this disruption was so traumatic. It was so traumatic that I say in the book, Dr. Handy, I love this part. They experienced post-traumatic crucifixion syndrome. PTCS. Yes. Write that down in the chat. PTCS. They were so traumatic. And instead of that, they defaulted back to the thing that was easy for them. And that's what we love to do. We do things that are normal, familiar, and comfortable. And I contend, instead of defaulting back to the normal, they should have took their butt to counseling. They were so traumatized, but they did what was comfortable. And Jesus shows up. Jesus said, look here, guys, you've been disrupted. And now it's time to do something new, do something different. So Stephanie, if you see on the slide, Jesus said they had been fishing on the left side. And the left side was that normal, routine, predictable way of doing things. You know how we do every day. We brush our teeth the same way. We do the same thing. We know the same thing in worship. We do several things, so many things in a routine way. But Jesus says, hey, I'm changing that. It's time to shift. So they were fishing on the left side. And the left side was where things were certain, common, and comfortable. We love doing things that are certain. We love doing things that are comfortable. But Jesus says, in this new iteration, after my death and resurrection, I want to let old things pass away. And now it's time to do something new. Well, what's the new things that the disciples are asking? They say it's time. Jesus says, time to shift to the right. Shift to the right. And what is the right? The right is that space where things are uncertain. Write this down. Things are uncommon and things are uncomfortable. So think about this, y'all. BC, before COVID, we were doing things that were common, certain, and comfortable. We knew what was going to happen in worship. We wondered why people showed up late to come to church, because they knew what was going to happen. Things were so common. Things were so predictable. But Jesus told the disciples that what I'm doing now is no longer common. So he says, shift to the right. And when they shifted to the right, you all, an amazing catch happened. They caught so many fish they couldn't imagine it. But I wanted to say this for those who are listening. When we say right, the right side is not a theological or political ideology, but the right side is an alternative position to experience unlimited possibilities. You're talking about a new way forward, Dr. Handy? The right side is the right side. It's the right way. He said it's not theological or religious, but it's an alternative position to experience unlimited possibilities. And if we're going to harvest this new mindset right now, for those who are listening, we have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's this new reality we're in right now. That's that new way of doing things. So we have to get comfortable. Normal is gone bye-bye, and God is doing something brand new that we don't understand.
So, Mike, we have this tendency to get comfortable when we know you don't grow in comfort.
Right. No.
You don't grow in comfort.
No.
And so we are trying to change people's behavior. And I think about faith communities. I think about nonprofits. And I think about those other places, business, where if those, and government agencies, if those 3 or 4 entities could come together.
Yeah.
Imagine the power of those entities. So right now, the church has a tendency to operate in and of itself.
Yeah. Yeah. On the left side. On the left side.
But yet the people who come to us in these sectors of society.
Right.
We've not leveraged those possibilities, nor have we moved beyond our vocational landscapes.
Right.
So how do we, in your estimation, how do we think about erasing these lines around, now watch this, erasing these lines around congregations,
Yes.
erasing these lines around districts, erasing these lines around conferences, erasing these lines around jurisdictions, and every sector has its lines.
Right.
How would you talk about our ability to not focus on shifting behavior first, but shifting mindset so that behavior follows?
But that is a great question. Only Dr. Stephen Handy could ask that question. That's why I love this brother. You know, I think, and what Dr. Handy just did, I believe great leaders don't have all the right answers. They ask the right questions. And the questions we need to ask ourselves right now, whether you're in corporate America or district superintendent, I pray there's some bishops on this call right now. And we have to ask ourselves, bishop need to ask ourselves the question, what we're doing right now, is it working? Is it working? And we have to be honest with ourselves and say, my mindset, my thought process is the way that I'm thinking, Stephen, is it bearing fruit? Is it being productive? Is it challenging leaders to live a different way? And I would say this real clear, that so often we operate with the left side mindset and expect right side results, meaning we do things that are common, certain, and predictable, but we want to experience the supernatural. No, God said, no, it's not until you get out of the way and allow me to transform your thinking to experience a new life. I believe right now, United Methodist Church, this is our context. We have to say, what we're doing, is it working? Stephen said it best. We have to erase the lines. We have to change the paradigm. But first, we have to change the way we think. As a person thinks, so they are. We have to change our thinking. And our thinking informs our behavior. Our behavior informs our practices. Our practices bring about actions, and actions lead to results. And I think right now, God is saying, United Methodist Church, God is saying, leaders, change your thinking. It starts in the mind. It starts in the mind, but it ends after we go past our stinking thinking.
Yes. And so as leaders, I contend that this movement will not start unless we're clear who initiates it.
Yeah.
We are not the initiators. This is my shift in thinking, right?
Yeah, I love it.
I'm taught to initiate. God initiates.
Right.
We are called to be available for when God initiates.
Right.
And the challenge is, if we're doing things that God didn't initiate, oh, Lord have mercy.
What you're meddling now,
with
man.
A disproportionate amount of our energy, our efforts, and our time going against the will of God. And then we wonder why nothing's happening, why nothing's changed, why nothing is being transformed. That's been my experience.
Oh, yeah, because we want to control everything. Probably about 20% of the people on this call, they're controlaholics. I just got delivered from that, but we want to control everything.
Hallelujah.
And we want God to bless it. How can we
ask God to bless it, right?
Yeah, after the fact.
I got this idea, God. I need wait. Can you think God's kind of steps back and say, well, wait a minute. I'm the idea guy. I need you to simply implement.
Yeah. But think about this, Stephen. The disciples showed up. They knew how to fish. They fished. They kept fishing. And guess what? On that one day, as the late Lamont Dozier, R&B artist, he said the fish weren't biting. So what do we do when the fish ain't biting? Do we keep doing the same old thing and expect different results? That's called insanity. And I believe the United Methodist Church, we've been doing the same old thing and asking God to bless it. And we wonder why we are in, as Bishop Menard say, a mel of a hess. We got to change our thinking.
So, Mike, here's what's interesting. As I think about these generations,
yeah,
God is still giving birth, right? When people say the end of times are coming, I go, no, the end of times are not coming. As God continues to allow birth to happen, so God gives us another generation. Every so often, I contend to help us reimagine a way forward. But if we lock those voices out, if we lock those perspectives out, if we lock those persons out, then we become our worst enemy, thinking and believing that if we just work harder, the days of working harder are over.
Over.
We have to work strategically.
Love it.
Jesus didn't use that word, but Jesus was a strategist.
He was.
That's why he built these discipleship systems, right? And it was an apprenticeship system. So I think what you're helping us understand is how to uncover what God has already given us to do.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. You know, and you talk about these leaders. And one thing, the I that Stephen is talking about, how do we begin to invest in right side leaders? What does right side leadership look like? And I contend right now, Stephen, you said it best. Many of us, we forget that Jesus and the disciples, you all, they were young adults.
That's right.
Jesus was 33. He
You're
was
right.
a young man. So that means we had these young group of cutting edge leaders going against the religious system that rejected them. And man, it sounds like what we do today, don't we? We have these young leaders coming behind us and put me in, coach. But we say, oh, no, you hadn't served your time yet. No, you're not an elder. No. And you know what? God has said, I'm tired of these titles. But guess what? I'm doing a new thing. And what I love about the new thing, George Barna says, for the first time, we have 5 generations that are actively influencing culture. They're in our congregations and they are in our community. So think about those 5 generations. You have traditionalists. Those are the persons born in 1925 to 1945. Then you have the baby boomers. The baby boomers are those born 1946 to 1964. Then you have the millennials. If you in the house say, yeah, millennials, no, I'm sorry, not millennials, Gen Xers. I'm a Gen Xer. Gen Xers, Dr. Handy. This is the hip hop generation, 1965 to 1979. And then you have the millennials. I call this the Beehive generation. Oh, they love some Beehive. They love some Beyonce. They are born 1980 to 1995. And then you have the Gen Zers. And I'm trying to figure this generation out, but Gen Zers are born 1996 to 2010. I have 2 Gen Zers in my home. And friends, I contend right now, we must begin to invest like the Dickens. We must invest in our millennials and our Gen Zers. Millennials right now, and one thing I know, millennials are called digital natives. In the book, we talk about them being digital natives, and millennials, they are also entrepreneurial. But one thing about millennials sometimes they have a left side thinking, but they have some right side results. But one thing I want to say today, one of the greatest generations we have, Stephen, is guess who? Gen Z.
Yeah.
Gen Z, you all. Gen Z, this is the largest generation in the history of America. 91 million persons are Gen Zers born from 1996 to 2010. And think about this. This generation, pastors, listen to this. They produce $44 billion to the economy. So don't say these young folks don't have no money. They have money. They're just not in the church. Why are they not in the church? Because we don't invest in them and we don't give them a chance. Stop saying they hadn't lived enough. Stop saying they don't know enough. This generation, they know enough. No, they don't trust the church anymore. They don't trust leaders. They don't trust politicians. And now they are skeptical of pastors. Matter of fact, you all, if you get the book, Gen Zers is the first generation where atheism is the norm. Gen Z now, they have liberal sexual identity. They have liberal politics. This generation, I believe, is the first generation that are really, really, Stephen, right side. These are right side leaders. They lead out of curiosity. They lead out of courage. And they lead you all out of doing new things. They're tired of the old things. That's why we don't see them in church, because church is so predictable. Our lives are so predictable. And we wonder why we can't keep them, because they are creative. These are creative young people. And I would say this, Stephen, in closing. It's time for us to start investing in Gen Z. You may not see the ROI, the return on investment now, but in 20 years, these will be our doctors, our lawyers, our politicians, our senators. We may have a Gen Z on this call who might be the next president. But John Wesley said it best. What one generation tolerates, the next generation will embrace. And I contend right now, you all, we have to invest. We have to nurture. We have to start mentoring this next group of leaders that I believe are on the cutting edge, and they're going to turn this antiquated system around. I'm not saying the boomers can't do it. I'm not saying the extras can't do it, but we have to work together, but allow Gen Zs to lead.
So, Mike, I think it's helpful when we talk about investment.
Yeah.
That we look at investment from the framework of what we discovered with people in Nashville, where I reside.
Yeah.
That regardless of the generation, and this is interesting, regardless of the generations, people are looking for two things. They're looking for belonging, intimacy.
Belonging and intimacy.
Belonging and intimacy,
Yeah.
regardless of the generation.
Right, right.
So if indeed we can figure out how to invest in intimacy,
yeah,
belonging and intimacy, game over.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So how do we do that? One of the things that we've decided is we know about numbers. And so Jesus invites 12 disciples.
Yeah.
He didn't invite 300. He didn't invite 25 because he understood that there's a level of belonging with 12, with 3 in a core, right?
Yeah.
The intimacy.
Yeah, that's good.
We are so drawn into growth strategies
and numbers.
I think they have a role. We don't have any intimacy.
Right. Wow.
So we can reclaim that. So when I was listening to talk radio one day, I was paying attention to this quote that abundance is our birthright.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was startled by the fact that somebody believed that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And had the audacity to say it.
Yeah. Wow. And you know, Stephen, you said something. I want to go back because I love how you threw an alley-oop to me. And for everybody who's listening on this call, we're not leaving out boomers. We're not leaving out traditionalists. We're not leaving out Xers or millennials. But I love what Stephen said. Everybody who's daring to shift, who wants to be more intimate and wants to belong to a more nimble community can be a part of this new movement. And go on what you said, Stephen. You said that, which I think is a great segue. In these new leaders, I believe one thing in the book we talked about now in the United Methodist Church, we don't have enough. Scarcity, lack. And when I read what you talked about, Charlemagne the God from the Breakfast Club, you said he talked about abundance is our birthright. And man, when you said that, not only did it bless me, but it caused me to ponder, man, what is he saying? So when we talk about this whole we talked about facing scarcity through the lens of abundance. And mind you, we say there's not enough money in the denomination. Some people on the phone say they don't have enough. So when we talk about abundance being our birthright, when we look at what we don't have, knowing that God owns everything, what do we want to tell our people? And what does it mean to you when we say abundance is our birthright? And what does it have to do with stewardship and what we possess and what God can provide?
So at the end of the day, there's a call on our lives. That call leads to abundance.
Yeah.
I've not said that before.
Wow, the call leads to abundance. That's new, man.
To abundance.
That's good. If
we are willing to be available and present when God calls us.
Wow.
But we get distracted, disaffiliation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So imagine if we would have invested that time in discipleship.
Wow. From disaffiliation to discipleship.
Imagine how much broader our reach would be in terms of the good news of Jesus.
Amen.
Right? I mean, he does tell us to go to all these places, to the ends of the earth, right?
Right.
But what did disaffiliation do?
It stuck.
It cut down any conversation about discipleship.
We couldn't move. We were stuck.
So we walked away from abundance.
Yeah.
And we were led into a mindset of scarcity. And that's where we sit today. Some of us. Others have said, I have nothing to do with that. That is not of God.
Right, right.
At some point, we've got to rewrite the narrative, right? I always tell people, you have to determine who controls your calendar.
That's good.
I'm here in Atlanta right now. We're doing Facing the Future conference. And we did the opening, and I said a few things. One is, who controls your time? So there's this ROT, return on time.
I love it.
And who determines your time? Who's writing your narrative? At the end of the day, Kendrick Lamar said, I choose me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
When are we going to invest in ourselves, not only as individuals, but as the collective, as people of color, as BIPOC people? When do we say, I trust you enough to take the next faithful step, as opposed to defaulting to why you chose you to be the leader? You see, our brains are situated to go to the negative, right? We have to rewire
and say, and why not me?
Know that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. God, right? Game over. So the denomination knows, and it fears that if we have the idea of investing in each other, and we move from scarcity to abundance with BIPOC people in this denomination, the denomination shifts.
Wow.
They are so preoccupied with control and holding on to what they have preserved all these years, but we bring a freshness. Perspective, right? So Jesus is walking and they don't notice him because they are preoccupied with scarcity.
With the old way. Wow. Yeah. But if we have a lens of abundance, we realize that with God, not only all things are possible, but all things are already present.
And God simply says, are you available to live into the abundance that I have assigned to my world?
So guess what? Stay right there. He had that conversation with the disciples, and guess what he's saying? I own everything, but do one thing, shift your thinking, and there's abundance on the right side. And God is telling us right now, everything we need is available. We say he's Jehovah Jireh. And if we trust that God is the owner of all things and look through those lenses with abundance, man, I tell you, you blessed me today, because guess what?
But Mike, that's what we say. We have a said faith and not an active faith. So I would rather tell you what I know than show you.
But wow.
And Jesus is in the midst of coming back after the resurrection to show them who he is, right? He's showing them how to do what he's practiced with them for 3 to 3.5 years.
And he was telling them, hey, I'm gonna go away, I'm gonna die. But sometimes they were listening, they were hearing, but not listening to what the Spirit was saying. I believe right now, when you've been disrupted, God has been telling us, God's been showing us, but Stephen, I contend right now, we're not listening what the Spirit is saying in this new iteration of ministry, this new season of life. And I was thinking that as we turn the corner, I really love how in the book, for those who read the book, the final chapter, Stephen, Dr. Hand, he talks about the power of experimentation and curiosity. And you said something that I love. You said one of your favorite classes was science, and you love the science experimentations. So talk about the T and the transforming perspectives from a D3 perspective to where we are now. What does that mean right now in the midst of this shift?
Yeah, so one of the things that we have been practicing and teaching and modeling is our leaders have to be curious. And we have to create not cultures of congregational life, the cultures of experimentation.
I love that.
So now that breaks up the whole structure of the church, right? I don't have to go to this committee, this board to get approval where 2 or 3 are gathered. Well, watch this. Jesus said, where there are 2 or 3 gathered in my name, I am present.
Right.
If God is in the midst of calling us to align us to the experiment, experiments don't fail in my estimation. Experiments are only platforms for learning. If we could create, recreate, reorient, right? Reevaluate our congregations now to be beyond Sunday morning worship experiences, but to create Monday through Saturday worship experiences and experiments, and we celebrate God's presence among us in those experiments. So the first idea is, watch this now, discernment. Now, I'm not talking about you hitting the numbers. I mean, some people believe that, but I'm not talking about that kind of discernment. I'm talking about when God calls us to be available, do we know where to go?
Right.
And we discern, wait a minute, I need to pivot. And in the midst of that, what is God saying? You don't hold that to yourself. You share that with someone else so someone else can walk with you in that discerning process. That's why Jesus sent the disciples out 2 by 2. I contend the Methodist Church messed up when we sent pastors out 1 by 1. I'm going to leave that. Number
Hey,
two,
that's another webinar. That's another webinar, man. Go ahead.
we'll do that one later. We move from discernment to discovery.
Yeah.
Right. So the discovery is, I can see it now.
Yeah. Aha moment.
But the I can see it now, right? They don't see Jesus for many episodes. He's coming back for the third time. They don't see him. When they discover him, they see him.
Yeah.
They call him by name. They have re-identified him as the Savior.
Yeah.
Then you kind of move towards the end of that deployment.
Yeah.
Now, where do you want me in the marketplace? Now, here's what's interesting, Mike, and I think we may have touched about this in the book. Jesus spent more time around tables than he did in the temple.
Wow. Say more about that. Wow.
And so what we've been induced to believe, indoctrinated to believe, is to bring people to a building and let them sit in pews and allow one person to tell them what they know. We sing a few songs, we take an offering plate, then we pray a couple of times, then we say, we'll see you next week.
Yeah. No transformation.
We get 3 or 4 episodes of the temple in the Bible. In 4 Gospels, we get 3 episodes.
Just 3.
None of them went well.
Right.
So we find Jesus in the marketplace saying, I never told you to go to a building. He doesn't, watch this, he doesn't invite the disciples to the temple.
Wow.
Not an episode in the biblical text of the disciples being in the temple.
That's a shift.
So how do we shift that idea that we are to meet people where they are? There are more people that meet
coffee shops
on Sunday.
Wow.
Watch this, Mike. There are more people that meet on coffee shops on Sunday than in congregations on Sunday.
Say that again. So somebody
more people that meet in coffee shops than in congregations on Sunday.
Wow. So you mean to tell me we could do, like, check this out. What if we had a gathering where you would have muffins and mimosas?
Absolutely.
I mean, think about it. But it's all, you said it, it's intimacy and belonging. That's what we started. That's
what Jesus brings to the disciples, right?
That's it.
And then he deposits the biblical text within them. Now, they would have known some of that, but they didn't know enough. So the last thing I want to say is, when you are willing to be available, that's the start of the revolution.
That's the shift that started. That's the shift. Love it.
You guys, I'm telling you, the chat it's blowing up. It's blowing up. I mean, what amazing thought leaders that we have right among our midst. You guys are profound thinkers, and you have shared with us just some really, really good nuggets. And I want to open it up for questions, because I have been in the chat and dropping some information in. But while you guys are getting your questions together, I know that you guys have a workbook. Now, let me just say this. For those of you, I know that everybody who doesn't have the book will be going to get the book, because this was just a high level, of some of the teachings, but it's intended for it to be a tool for leaders to use in their church to help their leaders shift. And so you guys are taking it a step further, and you're working on a workbook that I understand is coming out soon, so that we can begin to use this as maybe Lent studies, or different type of Bible studies on the ground as we shift to help our congregations be shifters. So talk to us about the workbook that's coming.
Well, first of all, I want to thank my colleague and friend for sharing such a profound perspective and new stuff today, hot off the press. Your call is abundance. I mean, I like that. I like that. One thing Dr. Handy talks about is the power of community, the power of corporate America, the power of nonprofits. So this workbook has the Dare to Shift. It has John 21 as the foundation, but we're focusing on corporations. We're focusing on nonprofits, so that the average Georgian who may not be a believer can read this book. And guess what? It's for small groups. It's for daily devotion. And guess what? It could be used for sermon series. So as Stephen said, if we were going to write another volume of this, we would say dare to shift in the marketplace. So this workbook will be geared toward the marketplace, not just for the pews in the congregation. So that's the thing. It's going to press now, and it should be out it should be completed mid-November and out the 1st of December.
Very good.
Toska, I think also in addition to what Mike just said, and Mike, thank you for setting a path for me to walk on. Thanks for setting the path.
And you didn't need that, but I know you because you're my brother from another mother.
The path that you laid out for me, brother. This idea that God is relational, and that the workbook, its intent is for us to be relational. That's why we said we can't stop with church leaders.
Right.
We have to broaden that perspective, because who did Jesus spend most of his time with?
Tax collectors.
Yeah.
The marketplace.
Yeah. Relational. The relationship is what matters. I mean, in fact, discipleship begins with relationship, right?
Yep. Somebody just said, see all the people. That's it.
See all the people. And what I want to do is, we've dropped some information on the chat. I want to spend some time just saying to you all, for us at Leadership Forward, we always want a next. We always want you to know that there's something next. So I want you to mark your calendar for January the 10th through the 12th. Meet us at St. John's, Houston, downtown Houston, January the 10th through the 12th. And we are going to unpack in a very practical way, not just information from Shift, but we're going to work with you all in collaboration. We're bringing in leaders. We're working collectively with the Congregation of Black Pastors and SBC 21, and the innovative work that we all know that's happening at St. John's downtown through its nonprofit and all of that. But we're going to be collaborating together. We're curating collab labs. When you leave, Shift happens January the 10th through the 12th. I promise you, you're going to leave with a roadmap that you would have started on what it is that you want to do in terms of collaborating and how you're going to shift and the things that you want to work on. Things like social justice. Are you wanting to impact in the area of social justice and transformation and that sort of thing? Or you wanted to impact in the area of, cultural, seeing all the people? We talked a little bit about how, the millennials and the Gen Xers and the Gen Zs, that's the whole next generation. And what is it that you're doing in that space? And so we're bringing in some profound thought leaders to be able to help us in these collab labs so that we can curate what we can really move towards in the new thing that God has for us in 2024. I'm going to give you all one last, each of our panelists, one last comment to make before we shift out of here. So Dr. Handy.
Derek asked a question about the value of music in the shifting perspective.
Oh, wow.
And what I will tell you, Derek, it's evolving, but find spaces to experience. We just launched a Saturday 2 to 3 o'clock venue in a restaurant called Yielded Worship, Music and Meditation. There's not a preach word because the music is the preach word.
Yeah.
So we are teaching in that space how to be, where Sunday morning teaches us how to do. So we're so consumed with doing, we don't know who to be.
Wow.
So you find Jesus in Matthew's gospel, right? He gets baptized. He rolls up out of the water. God blesses him. He's not preached a sermon. He's not taught Bible study. He's done no missional engagement. It was his being that he blessed. So as one who sits around many tables, find spaces in your community and go hang out. Amen. Pay attention to the movements, the people, ask questions, but put a budgetary item in your budget called coffee and conversations, or mimosa and conversations, or whatever you want to call it, milkshake and conversations.
Yeah.
I contend in this season, if we don't experiment, we're going to be set back another 10 to 15, 20 years. So blessings upon everything that you do. If we can help you in any way, let us know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Again, as we give the final words to Dr. Bowie, we come to a close. This has been amazing and fantastic. like our YouTube page, sbc21.org. Go to YouTube and look for us on YouTube. We have a ton of resources. These types of conversations live at sbc21.org on our resource page. And so we invite you to join our mailing list so that you can know about these. And not only that, we invite you to share this information with someone else. And so when you get the book, when you get the workbook, and you want to have this at your church, at your location, then we're happy to be able to resource you with these videos so that you can even share this video in the context of those types of teaching. And just stay connected with us, because Leadership Forward is where we want to be able to resource you with inspiration like this, teachings like this, so that you can be your best leadership self. Dr. Bowie.
Well, thank you, Toska. You've done an amazing job per usual. Thank you for wrangling these two eights, these two innovative, out-of-the-box thinkers, but thank you for keeping us on task. I want to read this quote that's from the workbook. It says, I contend that most of us have a daring, adventurous side of us that perhaps has never been fully realized, activated, or appreciated. But it usually takes a major disruption in our lives for that daring side to surface. Hey, friends, let me tell you something. Don't wait to have a baseball-sized tumor. Let's not wait for another disaffiliation. Let's just trust that whatever we need right now, that God has already provided, and there is a blessing on the right side, but we must dare like never before to shift our thinking and to receive the unlimited possibilities that God has for us. So whatever you do, shifters, make sure you keep living, loving, and learning with the right side mindset. Hey, God bless you. Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.